Hello and welcome to the Cam Show Unpacking Within. I'm your host, Cam, and I am based out of Dallas, Texas, for those of you that do not know. And on this podcast, my mission is pretty simple. It's to help you understand yourself a little bit better and to give you things you can learn from and try to implement in your life to really try to create the life that you want. Today's episode will be all about your comfort zone and how it's keeping you stuck and in freeze mode and so many other things. I can speak from this just from experience as well, also from some research. But also, today's podcast and the topic is about being stuck, but the purpose of it is to give you things that maybe you can use and try to implement in your life, right? I think also on this episode, I want to explore some of the reasons behind stagnant thinking and how you can try to overcome it. Because a lot of us, I won't say a lot of us, I feel like some podcasts out there are like, here's all the reasons or here's all the things that you're doing wrong. They don't really provide the self help guidance or the self help support that you can kind of take away and say, hey, I know where I can maybe try to progress in this area that I want to develop in. Um, Without digging too deep into that, I will do my best at explaining what I found complacency is and how it can manifest in your life. So, complacency means a feeling of smug or uncritical satisfaction with oneself or one's achievements. And it's so funny because I think a lot of people know that I follow this psychologist, and I love her work. I love everything that she stands for because she's about learning who you are kind of through your own body and kind of through your own history and your upbringing and your parents. Like those are all a blueprint to who you are and why you manage the way that you do. I think also recently I read something, or I think I saw a video where the person was like, your brain is programmed to think and to feel certain things, and I couldn't find that much more true. um, it was relevant to me because with this episode, there's so many topics that we don't necessarily try to discuss or people just don't care to dive deep into. And again, like time just spins and it just spins and it just spins. And I think it just becomes a cycle. So, um, if I want folks to take anything from this podcast is to really take things that help you grow, and that help us kind of achieve what we want to achieve out of this life, right? Whether that be starting a YouTube channel, whether that be starting a podcast, whether that be connecting with your family on a deeper level. Those are all small but big and mighty things that can really help and propel you into the next level of your life. I also wish less people would glorify accomplishing things before 30. And Dr. Nicola Pera talked a little bit about it, right? She talked about exploring more in your 30s and your 40s and your 50s. And really, some people starting over at that age, right? Some people start over at the age of 40, and some people find themselves and their passions even at 50. Sometimes, even at 60, you decide, fuck it, I want to move across the country. You have every ability and every right to do just that. Life shouldn't just be celebrating, oh, I'm turning 30 and I've learned so much about my life. Absolutely. And you will continue to learn things about your life. I feel like there's so many things that we withhold from ourselves to, again, propel into the next level of our life. And I feel like sometimes we limit ourselves. We limit ourselves with our beliefs. We limit ourselves with things that we can actually accomplish. And I think once we're able to kind of tap into some of those things, to where we tell ourselves, I can do this. I can do this, and I'm going to watch myself get through this. That's easier said than done because so many of us are faced with anxiety and depression and stagnant thoughts and complacency. And that's perfectly fine. I think what's helpful is when you're able to identify what may be happening for you and also identifying maybe like a few goals like, hey, I know by this day and time, by 2025, I want to be able to do X, Y, and Z to further push me into the goal of whatever you want to reach your goal for. I think it's also important that we kind of stop and pause and understand what complacency looks like. Because although I can give a definition, some people don't know how to take things back and say, well, this is how this may be coming up for me. So Signs of complacency that might have you kind of stuck in a complacent mindset will be lack of motivation. So let's say if you know that you got to get up in the morning, you got to go to work, and work starts at 9 o'clock, and here you are at like 8:15. You got a 15-20 minute drive just to get out. Like, if you're contemplating on whether or not like rolling out of the bed or just even finding fulfillment and purpose and to getting up and maybe going to your job or maybe going to do something that may be of interest to you that you find interesting and creative, sometimes we lack that motivation to just keep going or even say, I'm going to do this, right? I'm just going to roll out of bed and I'm just going to go. I think there's more to be discussed there, but just for the sake of time, I just wanted to give you one small snippet of an example. Another one would be resistance to change. And I've talked about being in control in some of my previous episodes, and I will also talk about being resistant to change. I am such a routine person, and sometimes that is healthy, sometimes it's unhealthy for me because when something comes out of my way and I wasn't expecting it, then I don't know, my mind does something to where it's not allowing me to process what's actually happening, and it's allowing me to stay stagnant on a situation that occurred or maybe my environment that was before whatever came across me, throwing me off of my loop. I will say maybe a piece of advice around resistance to change is to just be open-minded. I've been really working on that, not just personally, but professionally. And I really want to give myself a pat on the back because, again, these are not easy things to do. It is so hard to be able to identify and target something and say, this is what's happening for me again, and put together goals and timelines to say, hey, this is what I want. This is how I want this to look by this day and time. Another piece is avoiding challenges. And I talked about this on my last episode. Some of us, including myself, we literally tell ourselves, this is too hard, or you have no ability to accomplish this because it's just so far fetched. I don't think there's anything in this world that is so far fetched from accomplishing something or doing something that comes across as being hard. We as humans can do hard things. And I think it's so important that we continue to tap into that, one, but two, tap into it in a sense to where it becomes routine to say, you know what, this is not hard. Well, actually, no, I think you should say, this is hard, but that's okay because I can do hard things. And again, I think there's so many rewards that come from that. There's so many things that we can tell ourselves around why we might have said that to ourselves. Maybe it was from your childhood, and maybe your parents told you, like, no, you're reaching for the stars. Like, who gives, right? Who gives a F? Reach for the stars, reach for your truth, reach for things that are important to you, that are hard for you. And even if it does come across as an obstacle, again, being resistant to change, sometimes you got to change the roadmap, and sometimes you got to change things to where you got to bring it to meet you where you are, but then also figure out ways to overcome those challenges. The second thing that I kind of wanted to unpack was the impact of true complacency in your thinking. And again, it's so important. And I want to give you something that was coming up for me when I found that I was complacent in my thinking. One is a mental stagnation piece, right? So complacency leads to stagnant thinking, and it truly limits your personal and your professional growth. So without sharing too much, I was in a conversation with someone that I look up to, that oversees some of my daily projects, that has a say so in some of my work. And I got some very tough feedback, and the feedback was, you're too casual. At the moment, I did not know what the hell that meant. I just didn't. And my mind was so stuck there because that was so hard for me to accept. It was hard for me to identify, okay, one, I respect this person enough to understand where they may be coming from, seeing a different perspective of who I am, right? Because it's one thing to understand and feel like, oh, I know who I am. And it's another thing to understand that we all are still growing. We're all still professionally growing, personally growing in spaces that may be new to us. I think maybe I've shared this before. I think I did on a few of my earlier episodes. Is I had recently joined a new team at work before I had moved to Dallas, and I feel like it was one of the best decisions that I had made in my life because life in Seattle was good, but I feel like life in Dallas is great. It's great from a sense of I have natural sunlight year round, right? I'm not fiending and putting artificial lights inside of my house to get sunlight. I think that even going back to Seattle, like I knew where I had mental stagnation and to where I didn't allow my own strength. I didn't allow myself to pull onto my own strength to say, this is where you are, and this is why you may be having personal limiting beliefs and professional growth challenges in your life. Another thing is a creative block that can really guide your complacency on your thinking. I am such a creative person. I love singing. I love acting. I love dancing. I love writing. I love digging deeper in just topics that seem taboo. I don't stay away from any conversation, to be completely honest, because I love learning and I love learning about people. But some creativity blocks that come up for me sometimes are in my writing, right? Like even with the podcast, there's been a few times to where I've promised like, oh, I'll put out another one this month and then this month and this month. And I think there was a period in time where I think I probably went a good 2 months without even putting a podcast episode out. And I had came up with every excuse possible to say, oh, this is why I'm not doing it. No, that's no, I mean, it's an excuse, right? That's perfectly fine. It's an excuse, but it's also a lie to yourself to make yourself again believe that you can't do hard things. Push yourself and elevate yourself to a higher standard because I guarantee you when you learn to do just that, when you push yourself to a higher standard, others around you will see that you hold yourself to a higher standard. One, you limit your time between who you may be hanging out with. You limit what you expose yourself to. There's just so many benefits to pushing yourself again to achieve higher success. And I'm not talking about success with just money or financial status. Like that is the least of it. But sometimes it's success in the way that you think. The brain is such a powerful thing, and I can't express that enough. And it's so important that we exercise our brain right and the gift that God gave us to think. A lot of us don't understand that it is such a blessing to be able to move your limbs, move your body, think properly, be in your right mind. Those are all small pieces around accomplishing great and big things. I was once at a time in my life where I had never accepted challenges. I was so complacent and I was so comfortable. I was making good money. I had a good circle around me. I had great support. I could go and enjoy vacations whenever I wanted to. But yes, that is good to experience that. And it's good to experience positivity and radiate positivity around you, including those people around you that you're connected to. But it's also, again, it goes back to that raising it to a higher standard. I think it's okay to enjoy that moment, but sometimes we got to push ourselves to say, you know what, this is another hard thing that I want to do. And this is another hard thing that I want to accomplish. And you can do just that. Another thing that happens when we have complacency with our thinking is decision making. And we can be extremely complacent in our thinking. And this truly affects the way that we make decisions, our ability to make decisions. And this can also lead to just poor choices. Some of us, and myself included, have experienced lack of decision making and being so wishy-washy to where it's like, oh, I think I want to do this. Why can't you make the decision right there, right? Why can't you piece the puzzle to your piece? Why can't you put your pieces of your puzzle together to say, this is why I want to make this decision. Here's X, Y, and well, because of A, B, and C, here's why X, Y, and Z, and here's why I'm making that decision. I think that um, that comes from a lack of trust in yourself. it comes from fear of failure, and it comes from a number of things that, again, keep us from making decisions for our lives, whether that be to graduate to the next chapter of your life, graduate to maybe move to a different city if you're not used to it. These are all things that I think that allow us as humans to psychologically graduate to the next era of your life. I am also so aware around why people may avoid doing hard work around being complacent and not doing things necessarily where they find it hard. Again, I think it goes back to the element of fear of failure and how fear of failure or rejection can really keep you from stepping out on faith or stepping out of your comfort zone. I'm pretty spiritual when it comes to stuff like this, and it took months and months and months of prayer to remove a fear of failure. And I still have fears of failure because I want to accomplish so much in my life, and I want people around me to accomplish so much, and I want people around me to understand that, again, you can do hard things and you have everything you need to accomplish just that. I also think that people are scared of avoiding hard work because it is so comfortable. Again, when I was making good money, I was in my hometown and I had a solid group of friends. We ate out most of the week. Again, I vacationed when I wanted to. I was in a relationship at the time, but I was also living by myself. And my partner was living in another city. We were only about an hour and 35 minutes away from each other. It felt good. And I felt like, oh my God, this is the life that you want to live. And granted, I was 21, 22, and your thoughts are always evolving and they're always changing. And again, I always say this is perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine if you're at that age. Um, I think that growth and progress comes within time. And it's not something that I think you can just turn on and turn off. I think you have to go through, at least from my experience, I think it's important that we go through psychological things and life environmental and experiential tongue twister um, things, important things in our life to, again, propel us to think and to know that this isn't the end all be all. And I also know that it's important that I not just call out, here's everything wrong again, like I mentioned earlier today. It's so apparent how so many people just say, hey, here's everything that's wrong with you. And they don't allow um, permission to look into it just a little bit more. So, like, I remember being in couples therapy. Oh my God, this is years ago, but I was in couples therapy, and what the therapist would do was um, she would basically, I think, what would she say? She would say, like, tell me what happened, this week. And I think what we would do is, like, we would bring up every single issue and, like, we would just throw it at her. And then I think, and it might have been a cultural difference. She was a white woman. And here we were, two gay black men, feisty and sassy, kind of going back and forth. And it was like, well, I didn't do that. So, like, we were kind of hashing things out in that moment in front of her. And I don't think she truly knew how to intervene to say, hey, it's okay that you both are feeling this way, but what I am here for is X, Y, and Z. Um, this is so important to overcome one, complacency, but complacency in thought and complacency in, again, not being able to progress to that next way of thinking. And self-reflection is so important because you have to be able to go back at your home, wherever you go at night, and into your bed, right? And think of the current mindset that you're in. And again, just identify very, very small things around complacency that may be showing up for you. Maybe it's you got work at 9 o'clock, like I mentioned earlier, and you wake up at 8:15, knowing you got a good 20-minute drive. You got to get up, shower, iron your clothes. Like, those are all very good self-reflecting ideas that you can use to implement into your life, but to also grow yourself mentally. I also think, and I touched on this a little bit, is setting goals, right? Like, I can't emphasize how important it is to set clear, an emphasis on clear, timely goals. I want you all to look up SMART goals. And it's something that I learned in college. I think I learned a little bit of it in high school, but more recently in college and in work. SMART goals are goals where you put like a time limit to it. You understand if it's attainable or not. You understand the things that you'll need to get there. And it just gives you a true roadmap of trying to set a goal for yourself, but also giving you the steps to even get there. And you also got to be real with yourself with the goal, right? Like if you're like, oh, I'm gonna lose this weight, but you don't put together a plan, that's on you. That's on you because you're setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up to not be smart in the situations because you don't just say, oh, I'm going to do this, right? You can do that. And a lot of people have very, very strong will to say, I'm going to do this. And they set their mind out to get to it. However, those people also have some kind of plan in place. I don't think that they just go willy nilly it. Again, I'm just speaking from experience. And I found helpful things that have helped me in my life that have helped me accomplish hard things and things that I never thought that I could even accomplish in my lifetime because I used to tell myself like, no, you're not worthy. You're not worthy and you're not capable of it. I don't think my thoughts would sound that way, but I would always shy away from things that were hard because I would always have a lot of self-doubting ideas and thoughts in my head that would eventually lead me to not just doing the thing. And again, being complacent, being comfortable, being um, just there, existing like a feather. Again, I also think it's important that we continue learning. I think learning from podcasts like this, learning from other podcasts where you may be connected spiritually, mentally, however, with another person to where you're like, I really, really connect with that person. I really like the way that they help me think about things differently. So many people have helped me think through things and get through things in my life differently that I didn't even know that I needed at the time. And now, again, looking back over years and years and years of life experience, more so earlier in my adulthood, people don't talk just to talk. They're talking more than likely from experience. And again, I think it's up to us to say we can use that and we can try to put it in little boxes in our mind to say, you know, I want to revisit this when this comes up for me. So I am such an advocate for lifelong learning and staying curious. Again, I don't try to shy away from any conversation because I believe that every conversation is important unless I'm just like, this is not worth my time. Like I'm not there anymore, but I'll still tell the person or I'll tell myself like, here's why I'm not there or here's why this doesn't make sense for me to, I don't know, take part in. Like it's not something that I can maybe give an example. Like I can't think of an example right now. I just think of the overall communication and how I'm able to communicate how I'm feeling, thoughts that I may be having, things that may be happening for me as far as challenges are going, and ways to bring change and bring positive change and towards something that'll be healthy for me. I really, really, really want to say it's so important that we talk to ourselves with kindness and grace and empathy because in the world we really live in an age where there's so many thoughts and there's so many battling thoughts and so many repetitive thoughts. When you log on to social media, you allow 20 thoughts to be your own. And I don't think we should use social media in that way. I'm still guilty of that sometimes. And I feel like when that does come up, I'm like, you know what? Breathe, breathe, exit out this app and go outside, go for a walk, go get some sunshine, go drink some water. Those are all things that kind of bring you back to your present body and bring you back to your conscience around here's who I am and here's why I'm confident in who I am. So I want to give you some affirmations that I think that you can repeat to yourself to just really get through, right? One is I can do hard things. Two is I am intelligent and capable of finding solutions no matter the problem. Three, I am always learning and growing. Four, I am loved. It is safe for me to share and receive love with others. And last but not least, number five, I trust myself in my life This is all serving my highest good. I also hope that you pray or you just talk or you have some kind of center of attention for your life to someone you may be talking to understand that there's a higher power than you that allows you to live in this space and to live freely like you do, to have a free mind, to have a free will, to have the ability to think straight, to be in your right mind, to move all your limbs, to walk, to run, to talk, to see, to hear. Those are all abilities where sometimes we just take them for granted. And I hope that you always, always, always are praying to whoever you pray to. For me, it's the Lord. And I always just try to ask Him to deliver me from the spirit of procrastination, anxiety, heaviness on my mind, and just all worries, because those are not gifts from Him. Gifts from Him are peace and love and prosperity and freedom. And I think that it's important that not only do we ask Him to let this food nourish and strengthen our bodies when we want to eat food, or keep us safe on this plane, or keep us safe, on the way to work. Those are still all so important, but there are so many other spiritual things around us I don't think we can even see, right? Like there's a spirit of procrastination. Why are you procrastinating? Why are we procrastinating? Because there's a spirit of fear. There's a spirit of fear of failure. And I think the sooner that we can try to dig into stuff like that, and the sooner that we can identify maybe things that may be coming up for us, then I feel like that's when we at least take that first step. The first step is always identifying, right? Identifying that there's a problem and that you want to find a solution for yourself. His grace is sufficient enough. I saw that recently from someone who I respect and love and adore so much. His grace is sufficient enough. And with that, we say amen. And I think it just goes back to being thankful and being aware of who you are, being confident in yourself, being confident in who He says that you are. Again, that's very important, because if you lack confidence, you're lacking in other areas too. I think confidence falls in other areas of your life. It's not just, oh, confidence and that's it, right? It may be confidence in your relationship with your parents, confidence in your relationship with your siblings, confident in your relationship with your work. Like those are all important things to kind of take into account and come up with some smart goals to accomplish a better life for yourself. You also always have to remind yourself that whatever vision you set your hands to work on will prosper and grow. I started this podcast because, again, I was having some very deep conversations with myself from reading. I love reading books about love, about life, about God, about friendships, and about propelling and graduating to the next level psychologically. And I also know that when I started this podcast, I knew that I wanted to continue having hard conversations, not just with myself, but also with other people, because other people are interested in conversations like this. And I can't thank you enough for tuning in and coming back each time I produce an episode. It truly, truly means the world to me that you even care to tune in. You can be doing anything else in the world, right? You can be listening to music, you can be listening to Pandora, Spotify, whatever, but you came here. And I am so, so, so extremely grateful for that. I just wanted to let you know, if I don't leave you with anything, I hope you know that you're great just where you are. And if God has given you any kind of gift if He's given you a nugget of a gift to just take and expand upon in whatever way possible and imaginable, you have every tool necessary in your box to go after it. And I don't say that lightly. I say that with a lot of heaviness, because it's the truth. It's the truth that He's here with you. It's the truth that He's here with me right now in this moment. And it's the truth that He'll walk with you through those hard times, through challenging times, through dark times, through light times. He said that He'll never leave you or forsake you. And it's important that we also always sit there and say, no matter what comes my way, I know who my God is and I know where I'm going. And I think when you're able to say that to yourself, you're able to give yourself a different level of confidence, and a different level of confidence in yourself, and really with your circumstances around you. And I just thank you for tuning in today. This was one of the first podcasts where I didn't truly read from a script. I've written out each of my podcasts, and this time I kind of gave myself some bullets and some highlights that I at least wanted to discuss. And I kind of just allowed it to flow. And this has felt great for me. And I hope that you receive it in the most loving way as possible. And again, it is perfectly fine to be where you are, whatever age you may be at, whatever location you may be at in your life or psychologically. And I just hope and pray that you continue to come back and you continue to learn something from each of these episodes. As you all know, I always like to leave you all with a song. But the song that came to mind for me, and I heard it earlier this week, was Solange, Mad, featuring Lil Wayne. The song was so cool and just so profound because some of us just walk around mad, right? And I feel like a lot of us still do have every right to be mad, and we have every right to be sad and upset. Um, it's okay to be there, but it's also okay to wanna graduate from that and want to release those thoughts and release those feelings and those tight holds on us because they definitely will stay there if you allow it. They will stay there and they will grow complacent with you. And I just hope you know that he is a promise keeper and there's nothing that you can't do that you set your mind to. And this podcast has shown me just that. So I thank you for tuning in and I hope you tune in to the next one. I think we'll be able to unpack some things that have been coming up for me and again, some additional private conversations. I've been in some talks with some people that want to come join. I am again a very controlling person when it comes to my baby and my podcast, but I want to be sure that the timing is right. And I want to be sure that what they're bringing or what I want them to bring is going to be of substance to you and it'll be of help. These are all people that I love and that I adore. And I'm so excited for you to meet some of them. But again, the timing will be right. And I'll just leave you with that. So without further ado, again, thank you for tuning in and I will talk to you soon.